If I didn't have those experiences as a child, I would have never been angry and I never would have been in the NHL.
All right, everybody, welcome officially to the Average Sucks Show. Super excited about today's guest for a variety of reasons. This is a hero of mine from childhood, and as an adult, an absolute hero for what he has going on in the world and what happens and what he's really up to in the world. And our guest today is Theo Fleury, and if you're not familiar with him, I'm going to throw a few things at you that most people have never done in their lives. One is a gold medal winner, an NHL All-Star, one of the top goal scorers of all time in the NHL. And number, I believe it was 57, I looked the other day, in goals in the NHL, points, played 15 years in the NHL, and is a hero to me, not just for that and his achievements there, because as I followed him and I've been watching him recently, one of the biggest things he said is, that was easy for him. And one of the biggest reasons I'm super excited about him being here today is what he stands for in the world today in the mental illness, in crisis, with trauma, and standing up for a world that today is filled with suicide and doubt and depression and shame. And I'm super excited that you're here today, Theo, and I'm really excited about your cause. And it was a book that I read in 2000, I believe it was 12. It wound up Amazon. We got to thank Amazon for this interview. And they threw Playing with Fire at me. And welcome today. And I'm super excited about this interview because we talked prior to this about really what you're up to and making a difference in the world. So who is Theo Fleury today in the world? Like, what do you stand for now? Not the hockey guy.
Well, when I started on the journey, I just told my story basically. And then I became an advocate, and now I'm an activist around the subject of trauma, mental health, and addiction, and the epidemic proportions that it's reached on this planet, because I don't think in my 10 years of doing research that anybody is immune from experiencing trauma, in their life. And I always like to say, when I'm standing on stage and speaking and people are sort of wondering if they have trauma or not, I said, I'm going to just qualify every single human being in the audience by saying, if you have parents, you've experienced trauma in your life.
It's truth.
Because when it comes down to it, those are the people that were in relationship from day one. And, I'm not really blaming anybody. I'm just saying that people are doing the best they can with what they have. And, we're basically trying to undo 100,000 years of trauma, because I read somewhere in the Bible one time that Cain killed Abel. Cain killed his brother.
That's trauma.
And that's where we started this whole cycle of trauma and abuse and human suffering and you name it.
Well, I will tell you that one of the biggest things that stood out, I spent a long time this weekend watching a lot of your videos online, ones you've made, ones people made of you. And there was one takeaway segment. I've been talking about healing people from the things that stopped them in their life for almost 20 years right now. And I've never in my life heard these words. You go to the doctor. What is the prescription for I was sexually abused or I have trauma? And the prescription is what? Valium? The prescription is go home and figure it out. The prescription is, I don't know, go see a therapist. And those words rang in my ears. I'm like, there literally is like a drawer of answers for diabetes. There's a drawer of answers for you blow your Achilles tendon out. There's a drawer for cancer, even shit that doesn't work. Okay, give it a shot. What the hell's the answer? And I'd love to get a little, we don't need to dig up. I mean, anyone can listen to your book or read your book. I mean, we don't need to get into the drama of this to give the context of it, but what do we do about that? Like, I know your story, and if you want to get into it a little, you can. I wasn't going to bore you with telling it again unless you feel the need to, but.
Well, it's as simple as both my parents experienced childhood trauma in their life. Okay. And then that manifested itself into addictions. So my dad was an alcoholic. My mom was a prescription pill addict. And I grew up in a very chaotic environment.
Did you know that as a kid? Like, did you know?
I had no idea. I just
was it just normal, or you didn't see the pills? Okay.
Yeah, I just thought it was normal. And so, you know, I grew up in chaos and violence and arguing and, you know, all these things. And so, you know, what we see, we end up repeating, right? And so, you know, as an adult, I struggled in relationship all the time, right? Because of, and then, you know, as a phenom hockey player as a kid, you know, I ran into this guy who basically promised me a one-way ticket to the NHL. And then over a 2.5 year period, you know, he raped me 150 times. And I say the word rape because I don't like the word sexual abuse, because it was made up by some smart-ass lawyer to get his clients off of longer sentences.
Wow.
That's why he uses the word sexual abuse instead of rape. Well, rape is rape is rape is rape. It doesn't have any other synonyms attached to it, right? So then, you know, I grew up feeling abandoned and neglected, not good enough, not lovable, and do I even exist in the world, right? And so because of that, you know, I ended up having a major addiction problem.
When did that start? So I get the context. I even see the drive. I even see the drive.
Of alcohol.
Yeah. When did alcohol start?
I was hooked. That's 15 or 16.
Okay. Were you out with your buddies after a game?
Yeah. And back in those days, it was, you know, was part of the deal, right?
Got it.
So, you know, and so I used alcohol to cope with the emotional pain and suffering that was left behind from these two traumatic experiences, you know, as a child.
Were you drinking during, like, because I was looking into the timeline and I figured out the book, and I want to figure out, like, because I could see where honestly no one could even blame you for that. You know, you mentioned you didn't sleep in 27 years. You understood the concept. So when you were 15, 16 years old, when you were dealing with names not to be spoken, whatever, the fucking guy, does that make sense? We'll leave him there. Were you drinking during that time, during the abuse?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, because, you know, it was, you know, what was I was getting raped 3 times a week for 2.5 years. So, you know, obviously, and, you know, having and wanting to be an NHL hockey player, you know, I needed something to, you know, cope with this crazy shit that was going on in my life, right? But what we know about addiction is your addiction never gets better, right? It gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And so, you know, towards the end of my professional hockey career, you know, I could no longer manage, you know, my mental illness, which was disguised as addiction, and, you know, took me out of the game.
Can you explain that to me? Because we'll take you to the end of your career. Again, I mean, you sound like the guy that studied your whole life. You're at the Drake Hotel. You spent 1 point. I want to figure out how you spent that 1 point, whatever, because that's impressive. I don't need to know the answers, but 1.2 million bucks or whatever you spent in a weekend at the Drake or whatever it was. You said mental illness was the real issue, but it was disguised as addiction. Could you describe that? Because a lot of people see themselves as an addict, and it's really mental illness. Can you give us a distinction of that?
I hate the word addiction because it has so much shame attached to it. Okay. And so I've changed the word addiction to emotional pain management. That's what it is. Okay. So, you know, we talked earlier about big pharma. Well, if I have a mental disorder, I go see a doctor. Doctor says, you know, what are your symptoms? Well, you know, I can't get out of bed, and, you know, I'm this and that. Well, here's a magic pill. Take it. Well, the addiction is no different. Instead of taking the magic pill, we find our own formula. right? And for me, that was vodka and cocaine was my elixir that numbed me completely out, where I didn't feel any pain at all.
So basically, you didn't have a drawer to pull from, like I said earlier. Like here's
No,
the
I
antidote.
went down the big pharma road,
Oh, you did.
and I had a gun in my mouth.
Got it. What did they
Okay?
have you on?
What didn't they have me on?
Okay.
Right? I started out on Paxil, and then the Paxil stopped working. So they said, oh, we got a booster. So they attached the booster on top of the Paxil. Then the booster stopped working. They gave me another booster, and it was like insane city.
And you were doing the orange bottles along with the vodka with the cocaine,
Yeah,
all at the same time.
all at the same time.
Holy shit. Okay, got it. All right, this is crazy. And what's interesting is people watching this are thinking, okay, that's him. He has the ability to do this. But how prevalent is this? Because I know the answer to this. I deal with this regularly. It doesn't matter if my clients that I'm working with are Skid Row or they're somebody that are a billionaire. Do you know what I'm saying? And the issues are the same. They got kids with problems, with cell phones, with everything else. We have issues. Cocaine's as prevalent today as it was back in the old days. The bigger problem is people are popping pills.
What does cocaine emulate in the brain chemistry that we produce? It's dopamine.
Dopamine. Yep.
Right? So, okay, I got a story for you. So when I was in utero, my mom was taking Valium. Okay?
Wow.
So I was the happiest baby on the planet because I'm bathing in GABA. For 9 months, I'm bathing in GABA, which caused damage to my brain because I can't produce dopamine and serotonin when I come out into the real world, when I'm no longer attached to my mother. Okay?
Wow.
So I'm anxious. I got 50 labels because I can't sit still in school, you name it, right? But then, as a 5-year-old, I discovered this wonderful game called hockey. And I step on the ice, pure dopamine, pure serotonin. So the only time my brain was actually functioning at the highest level was when I was on the ice. But as soon as I left the rink, I don't know how to produce dopamine and serotonin. So what do I gravitate towards? I find this white powdered substance called cocaine. Okay? And when I used to do cocaine, all the people that I did cocaine with were talking 300 miles an hour, chewing on their faces and tweaking hard. I would do it, be perfectly calm.
Would you call that like a functioning addict at that point? Like you could function with it? Because I know what you mean, the lip biting and the all the craziness.
Yeah.
So would you just like it worked for you? Is that because so much was missing, it got you to neutral?
Yeah, because the cocaine went into my brain and it was like, oh my God.
You're back to normal.
Back to normal, right? So people who have addictions are trying to regulate their own brain chemistry. That's what they're doing, right? That's why certain people gravitate towards opioids and heroin and all that. And then there's another side of the coin that likes to go fast and use those type of chemicals because damage has been done to our brains when we're little wee guys.
Wow.
And so we spend the rest of our lives trying to regulate our own brain chemistry. And that's ultimately what addiction is at the end of the day.
So hockey was your first addiction.
Yeah.
Correct? If we want to use the word addiction, it solved the dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin levels. You drugged yourself. You had ADD in school. I think you're at the age gap where it just got invented. ADD got invented. We're about a few years apart, you and I. And what I recognized, they had me on the meds. They sat me down, a guy with the same issue you have, the anxiety, the excitement, and everything. Hand me a class 2 controlled substance. What's that?
How old were you?
42 years old.
Okay.
So we're a couple of years apart.
No, but how old were you when you?
I was 13 years old. I'm from an MTV generation. They sat down with me. I'm auditory learner. They are trying to teach me visually, and they get me on the Ritalin. Doesn't work for me, and I'm hyped out. You know what they did?
They gave me cocaine. They
immediately give me imepramine, which is antidepressant. And then that dried me out. So they gave me something for my mouth. Then they gave me Remeron, then Adderall, then something else they gave me, XRs. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, by the time I'm in college, I can't even study without taking this stuff. So no wonder the partying and the drinking and everything else winds up surfacing. So I get it. I luckily didn't have a few tweaks and I had some level of stability. My parents, solid as can be. But I could see where one twist, I got enough friends in rehab and issues and problems where I was strategically designed to wind up down the wrong path with this. Yeah. Nobody taught me any different. And you know who to set me up for it? My math teacher who said, your son doesn't pay attention. Maybe see a therapist.
No, you're a bad teacher. That's what you are.
You suck at. I figured, like, why don't they take the best teachers in the world, the Mr. Rogers of the world, pay them $10 million a year like a professional athlete, give kids little remotes to pay attention, put them on a big screen, make a big deal, make it exciting, and I think I'd pay attention at school.
For sure. Well, the old model of education has never changed.
Yep.
Right? It's desks, blackboards, all that stuff. We have a whole generation of kids who can't even pay attention for a millisecond, and you want them to sit in a desk and learn? No.
We
need trauma-informed education. We need trauma-informed education, which means we all have different brain chemistry. We all learn differently. And so the classroom has to be designed for each individual to be able to learn, whether you're visual, audio, yep, whatever it is.
Yep.
You know, you need to know what the kid, you know, grooves at and learns at. So get rid of the desks, bring in beanbag chairs and all kinds of fun stuff. And you know, that's how we'll learn better. So how do because we've, you know, so.
How do we do this? So here's what happens. I'll give you a context of this. For years, I have events that are here to help people. They get tricked into the event by, tricked is the wrong word, but they come in for business, or they're an athlete, or I work with a lot of UFC fighters and different things. They're hockey players. They send their kids to our events. They then get there, and after enough time, somebody raises their hand, and I've known for years, unfortunately, I found at a young age that 40% of the audience has been raped, molested, abused at a minimum. Drug addictions, alcoholics, and now we're a little more open about it. So they finally come to our event. They're here to make their life better. And then they realized half of them have a block of something they haven't dealt with since they were 2 to 20 years old. Small group of people figure that out at our event. How do we start making that mainstream where somebody says, you know what, trauma is something we have to actually deal with and talk about, and it should be brought up in school in an effective way? Because I would love it if they came to me and I didn't sideswipe them that here's your real issue. How do we make this a known fact? Like, that's why I have people read your book so much, and I highly recommend it. If later you got a link or something where they go to get your book, I would love it if everybody read it, because whether it's that extreme or somebody was touched or misled or abandoned or whatever, fill in the blank with the trauma. What do we do to let people know that this trauma exists? You've been at this. I want to hear your say, because I'm on this fight with you, and it is a fight.
Well, we haven't figured a way to get rid of the shame. Okay. That's what holds all this in place, is shame. Okay. So the opposite of shame is vulnerability. Okay.
Okay.
And, you know, I didn't realize it, but in the book, when I wrote the book, I wrote it in a very vulnerable way where I just laid it all out. Okay. And what happened was it gave other people permission to find their own voice and to talk about their own stuff. Right.
Yeah.
And so vulnerability is the key to all this. Brene Brown, vulnerability.
Yeah.
Right.
I know the level you're talking about it.
Yeah. Though. Because when vulnerability enters a room of people who, you know, need their memories jarred a little bit.
Yep.
It creates safety. And then when you have safety, that's when the magic of healing happens. And that's why those people in your audience put up their hand, is because they feel safe and not judged. And, you know, there's compassion, there's empathy, there's forgiveness in the room, which allows them to stand up for the first time and say, hey, this is what happened.
And the stories are traumatic. And I think that even, I think the big challenge people have, like you mentioned 150 times, and this happened to you 150,000 times a day in your brain over and over again. So there's the physical activity. And then what most people don't recognize, that one moment where trauma might happen to you, you may traumatically abuse yourself or rape yourself 1,000 times a day for the rest of your life.
Well, and that's what PTSD is.
Yeah.
Post-traumatic stress disorder, the movie that keeps playing in my head that I can't change.
Are you still dealing with that currently?
What's that?
You still have that movie playing?
No.
You turned it off?
Because I rewired my brain. I went to a lady who does EMDR therapy.
I love it.
And I got to be the director of the movie. So I changed the script, I changed the actors, and, so when I hear that guy's name now,
yeah,
I don't cringe, and I don't, it's gone.
I love that you're taking this, and as someone that's, esteemed as you are, and someone that's, done what you've done in your life, it's amazing how many people I've sat down with professional athletes before and said, look, even the way you feel about the last shift you had, beating yourself up, you still get your dad yelling at you in your brain. And trauma, it doesn't have to be sexual. It could be literally living up to your dad's expectations because your dad called you an asshole when you were 6 years old, and then you treat your kids bad. It's 6 generations deep. And the same theory we do, I've been studying neurolinguistic programming for 20 years, EMDR. I love anything that allows you to black things out, raise colors, change pictures, move the scene. Big Theo comes in, saves little Theo, whatever it takes to solve and heal. But it's amazing how many people are still drinking Gatorade, make themselves healthy instead of drinking water. It's like they're just outdated in their approach. So how do we update? I mean, therapy as a whole is outdated. Like talking about it's not going to solve anything.
First of all, they've priced themselves completely out of the market.
People don't have $250 an hour in Calgary?
No.
In your little town you grew up in, people with a very native tribe, they don't have $250 an hour to solve?
No, they don't.
Okay.
That's why I say the most effective type of therapy is called group therapy, because it costs you nothing. It costs nothing to get a bunch of people in a room, use vulnerability, create safety, and then once you have safety, these people start popping up, and then we have this massive conversation about trauma, about mental health, about addiction. And then together we sort of give each other tools to get better. And then that person becomes an advocate. And then they start helping somebody else. Because that's the key to all of this. You want to recover? Go find somebody who's had the same experience as you and work on it together, so that you're not alone in your suffering and in your pain.
So is that your drive these days? Because as a kid, it was to get a Stanley Cup, and you did that, or to make the NHL or whatever it was you did, and that was your drive to do whatever it took. Is that your drive today, to build a world where people have someone else or a community or someone they can go to? Like, what is your 7-year-old watching, I don't know, Gordie Howe, whoever you watched as a kid? Was it Gordie? I don't know, who'd you watch as a kid?
Gretz.
Gretz, okay, got it. I love that he did the forward of your book. He was a Phoenix native for a while. He moved out here. So you watched, it was his birthday yesterday, 26th. I did my report on him when I was 9. So my question is, Gretzky, you watched him as a kid. Your hero was to make the moves, do the thing, go behind the net, do all that stuff you watched him do. Mm-hmm. What is your win a Stanley Cup, hoisted over your head, Edmonton Oiler moment? I know Flames, but I'm just saying that moment. What is that moment for you now? Like, what are you picturing your aim right now?
Well, 14 years ago, I hit my knees in a washroom.
Okay. And
I turned my will and my life over to the care of the universe as I understand it. Okay. The next day I woke up and I haven't had a drink since. Okay.
How many years has that been? You know how many days or tokens?
14.
14 years?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah. And what happened was the universe said, okay, this guy is ready to step into his true purpose and the real reason why we put him on this earth. right after that.
Wow. So you basically got sober, basically surrendered, said, I'm here to change, and accepted your responsibility.
Yeah, because I didn't fight anything anymore. I didn't question anything because I turned it over. Because, you know, I tried to figure this out on my own. Okay. And left to my own defenses, left to running my own life, was the biggest shit show on the planet. Okay. When I'm running my own life. Or when I drive the bus always, always, always crashed. Okay. So 14 years ago, I said, okay, I'm just going to sit in the passenger seat. You guys take over. Tell me what to do. I won't question it and I'll just do it. And then all of this happened. So we all have a higher purpose. And that higher purpose usually falls into the helping is healing category. That's why we're all here. We're not here to acquire things and amass billions of dollars. That's not why we're here. We're here to help each other in relationship get through the most difficult times in our life. That's as basic as it gets as to why we are all here.
I want to put this in context for everybody watching this. Hoisting the Stanley Cup or your sobriety, bigger achievement?
Sobriety.
Not even a question.
Not even a question.
So all those people going after things and stuff and achievements and feeling empty inside because they didn't heal, I'd love to get your definition of trauma. If you have a simple, eloquent definition, because a lot of people listening going, I didn't have his story, but what is your definition of trauma? Because I truly believe if I were to say what I do is heal people of what's holding them back, whatever that is. But what is your definition of trauma? Because you're using that word broad. And I think I have a lot of entrepreneurs watching this, successful people, athletes, fighters, all kinds of stuff. What's trauma to Theron?
Anything, any incident in our life that leaves us in emotional pain and suffering. That's trauma.
You got a few examples?
If you're bullied in school, that's trauma. If your parents divorced when you were very young, that's trauma. Somebody close to you dies that's trauma, right? So trauma is very subtle. Doesn't have to be as extreme, as my story. Like I get people coming up to me all the time. I've had some trauma in my life, but not as extreme as yours. And I
don't think it's quantifiable. I don't think it's quantifiable.
I say to them, I go, well, like, do you have mental health issues? And they're like, yeah. I'm going, well, and that's the thing about emotional pain. My emotional pain and your emotional pain feels exactly the same. There's no difference. There's no bar, right? Emotional pain is emotional pain. I feel mine exactly the same way that you feel yours. There is no difference. The experience, the experience may be a little bit more extreme, but emotional pain is emotional pain. And the brain doesn't decipher between emotional and physical pain, right?
So
and I'll give you examples. I actually suffered more physical trauma to my body than emotional trauma. Okay. So when I started out on this journey, I only worked on my emotional pain. Guess what I'm working on today? Physical pain. All those hits that I took in my career are now like right in my face. My emotional state of mind is great, but now I'm dealing with the physical trauma, that happened as an athlete.
And is that now, do you think your strength you have emotionally right now that you have is helping you deal with that more effectively instead of beating yourself up about, oh my God, I'm this age, this is horrible. Your emotional strength.
What's interesting is the physical pain triggers my emotional pain, right? So I have this thought in my head, I got a sore neck and I can't move my neck. Oh, I'm going to die. I got a tumor. You know what I mean? Like it's almost like a hypochondriac type of thing, right? And so, I have to use these tools, right? I got to meditate. I got to breathe. I got to exercise. I got to, all these things that, my old toolbox was filled with alcohol, drugs, food, sex, gambling, you name it. That was my old toolbox. So I had to switch the toolbox to meditation, yoga, all of these holistic practices that have been around for a million years, but we don't want to talk about them because they're too foo-foo and they're too out there and whatever, but they work. They work. If you do them, if you keep doing them, guess what happens? Your brain starts to rewire, right? And that's the whole idea behind this, is you can rewire your trauma. You can rewire your brain.
So how do we get, this stuff that you're talking about, it's been out for years. I'm asking you for advice on this. Well, you and I are on a similar mission, doing in a different direction, but actually the same damn direction. Let's get really clear. The same direction, maybe a different modality of this. And side note, here's where my ADD is helpful. There's a really crazy technique I'm going to get you offline called the ARP wave machine. If you're not familiar with it, for healing muscles, does the same thing EMDR does, rewires the circuitry of the muscles, convinces the body they're healed. Craziest shit in the world. I'll send it over to your team. You're going to thank me for that. Got rid of spasms and like shit that you wouldn't even imagine. It is literally like a rewiring of the circuitry of your nerves.
It's a very simple process, I'm sure.
It is. In one session, I got rid of spasms I had for 20 years. I will get it all over to Dawn, and you're going to thank me, and you owe me a box of Timmy's. But which is another drug in itself. But the question is, we're on this mission to make people aware, to make people comfortable with talking. I'd love to break this down in simplicity. So we're talking to kids. I noticed you talk to a lot of high school kids, and you start where the problem starts, young age. What are a few things we would tell people about? Give them rules like, it's okay to talk about this, find someone to help. Like, what is the series of rules? Because what we were taught as kids, shut the fuck up, bottle it up, hide it inside, don't tell anybody, drink, take the shot, do the beer bong, suck it up, drink your Labatt Triple X or whatever we drank when we were, remember that crap? We drank when we were kids.
Extra old stock, there you go.
Yep, all the old stuff we had when we were kids. Shut up and deal with it. What is the new set of rules that we should be giving our next generation, our kids? Because they're using this and they're looking at Kim Kardashian for answers. And she's got a moral obligation, that lady, to make the world better. In my opinion, she's making it worse.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, we have all these mental health organization charities that the key word they use is talk. Okay.
Okay.
Well, what the hell are we talking about?
What are they talking about? Because I don't see answers.
You know what I mean? So instead of maybe saying talk, why don't we ask the question, what happened to you? What happened to you? Because at the end of the day, that's eventually where you get to in therapy, right?
And actually talking about it is the beginning of the healing. It's admitting, which is the most shameful, hard part, to admit that you're not perfect.
But again, what are you admitting to? Something that happened to me that was a very traumatic experience. When you get that off your chest, oh my God, that's the light bulb moment. That's the aha moment. Because 4 days before I went to Toronto to release my book, I was shitting my pants. I was like, what the hell did I do? Because I didn't know how the world was going to react to what was in the book.
I can see
that.
I
took a leap of faith. I just said, you know what? I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And, in 12-step, we have this saying, you're only as sick as your secrets. I remember I remember it well. I was in treatment and I went to this very high profile AA meeting in Malibu, right? With all these actors and directors and all this stuff. And it was a birthday meeting. Okay. So the guys were getting, 16 years, 5 years, 3 years, 2 years, 1 year. But this guy got up on stage to receive his 16-year chip. And he gets up on the mic and he says 7 words. You're only as sick as your secrets. And it was like he threw a friggin' sledgehammer and hit me right between the eyes, because I was like, wow. Yeah, I got lots of secrets. And guess what? I am sick. Physically, emotionally, spiritually, I'm sick. Right? And so the last thing and the only thing I hadn't tried yet was the truth.
That's strong. The only thing I didn't try was the truth.
Yeah. Because
Wow.
what are we doing? We're living this secret life, right? Like we go home, we got kids, we're like, everything's okay. And we wear lipstick really well, right? But the insides didn't match the outsides.
So we're playing a part. You're directing a movie. It's almost like you did with the trauma. You directed in a way to be a loser or to lose, not be a loser, but to lose. And then you redirected your trauma to be a winner. But most people are putting a mask on as a winner, but they feel like the loser on the inside. So we need to start educating people to talk about things. I look at my 7-year-old and she literally tells us everything. There's no holding back, tells us everything, asks us everything too. She wants to be in every adult conversation. And she sat down, we're at the car the other day and we didn't want to tell her something because she didn't need to know. And I almost did a trauma move and I said like what my parents would have said, not a child conversation. And then she said, okay, aren't we on the same team that you ask me to tell you everything? She's very influential, right? And she tricked me and she goes, aren't we here to tell each other, you ask me to tell you everything. Are you telling me that that's not true? Can you at least give me a kid version? And I thought about that, like letting our children know it's okay to literally tell us everything and also tell them the good, the bad, and the ugly may solve some of this problem and stop hiding things because our insecurity is really what the issue is. So I had a friend who was a speaker for years. He said he wishes he was a little more insecure. He would have been more successful. He just passed last year. He's a little guy. I'd tell that story another time. But he goes, I wish I was a little more insecure. I might have been more successful. And that's another thing is any of the success that you feel like you had in the public eye or with the NHL or with hockey was driven by the insecurity, whether it was your size or your parents or embarrassment of how you grew up?
There's no question that when I think back on my life, all this stuff that I went through was part of my plan. Okay? This was all part of my plan, right? Because
Genius.
if I wasn't angry, I wouldn't have been successful in the NHL. I would even never had a career in the NHL if I wasn't angry. But if I didn't have those experiences as a child, I would have never been angry and I never would have been in the NHL, right? But because I had success, and considered a winner, now in this space that I'm in now, yeah, of course people want to listen. Because
you've got a platform. So you created
because of that success. But guess what? When I'm on stage, I don't say anything about hockey. I don't talk about hockey. So, there's a plan for your life. And when you get out of the way and stop driving the bus, then that plan can fulfill and take you to where you're supposed to be. And that's your purpose in life. But if you hang on to the steering wheel and hang on to the reins, you're not going to fulfill your true purpose in life.
So in the
deepest, you completely let go.
So you're saying in the deepest possible level, and I mean this in any terms as they are, is that whatever needed to happen to you to get to where it is that you're at is going to help the world greater as part of like an embryonic plan of the mom with the Valium to coach coming and finding you at 12 to everything that you dealt with, the alcohol, the drugs, the ex-wife, everything was designed so you could affect the whole country, our country, the world, get to South Australia, all over the world, that it needed to occur.
Yes.
To open up to your destiny.
Yes.
Because this is who Theron really is.
Yeah. They're gifts. Right? My parents were a gift. My abuser was a gift. Because without those experiences, I'm not here. I'm not talking to you today about this stuff. Because without the experience, I can't have an impact.
How long did it take you to get there? Because I get people there in several days, total immersion, 40 hours, jam them in a room, figure that out. How many years did it take you to get over farm boy from Canada? Put you in that category, right? Tough as nails, walking the fence, brother, son of kid of five, right? Five brothers and sisters, is that right?
Two brothers.
Oh, forgive me, I added some people to your family. How many years did it take you from drop to your knees to accepting the fact that you were doing all this and that this needed to happen and accepting that? Because some people watching this going, he's nuts. There's no way I'll ever forgive. I'll never forgive my abuser.
You're never going to get better. If you don't forgive, you're never going to get better. And I'll tell you a great story right now about forgiveness.
I'd love to hear it.
So I wrote my second book with a neuroscientist.
Yep.
Okay. And she told me from the beginning when we started writing the book, I can rewire your brain. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? You know what I mean? She goes, no, I can rewire your brain. So, I'm a poker player. So I shoved all my chips in the middle of the table and I said, I'm all in. Show me how to do that. And so we went on this 4-year journey of conversations back and forth to rewire my brain. But about halfway through the book, we're like set an intention that we wanted to go start working in the prison system in Canada.
Wow.
Just not really knowing why, or I think we were just curious. Okay. So that has come to fruition. I've been to like 25 prisons all over Canada, speaking to inmates. Okay. So we go to this place just outside of Winnipeg called Stony Mountain Penitentiary. And it has a maximum, medium, and minimum security in the prison. It's huge, massive prison. So I have 400 of the baddest dudes on the planet in my audience, and we're having an incredible conversation about trauma, mental health, and addiction. Okay? Like we're actually going back and forth. They're asking amazing questions. Okay? So I look out into my audience and I see this kid way in the back of the room and he can't even sit in his chair. He's so fired up, right? Because the safety has come into the room, right? And all these guys want to start talking about their trauma, right? So this kid stands up. He looks exactly like Eminem, the rapper, okay? He's got the flat beat cap. He's got tattoos from his neck all the way down to his feet. And, he's doing the hip hop thing. So the kid stands up. He goes, Theo Fleury says, you're my hero. I was like, whoa, wow. We're in prison here. And he said, as you can see, he says, I'm not the biggest guy in the world. And he said, I used to be a really great hockey player. And he said, when I was 14 years old, he said, I got involved with the wrong crowd. And I started selling drugs. And he said, I've been in and out of jail ever since. I was like, wow, okay. Then he says, you'll never guess who I was with 3 weeks ago in Grand Cache, Alberta. Oh, and I got to back it up. So when Kim and I were writing the book, she asked me about forgiveness. And I was like, no fucking way. Who do I got to forgive? These people did these horrible things. I'm not. She said, stop right there. She goes, I just want you to think about forgiveness. And I said, okay, I can do that. I can think about forgiveness. So anyways, this kid is standing in front of me. He goes, you'll never guess who I was with 3 weeks ago in Grand Cache, Alberta. I was like, who were you with? He said, I was with Graham James. The guy that abused me, he was in jail with this guy. And he said, Theo, because you're my hero, he said, my sole intent while I was in that prison was I was going to beat the shit out of this guy for you. But he said, Graham is very heavily guarded because everybody wants to beat the shit out of this guy, right? So he said, I waited and I waited and I waited. And he said, I got my chance. He said, the guards left his room and I walked into his room and he wasn't there. So I started searching around. He said, I went to the left side of the bed. He wasn't there. He said, I walked over to the right side of the bed and there he was, curled up in a ball in the fetal position in the corner of his room. And the kid said to me, he said, you know, I didn't do anything. You know what I said to the kid? I said, you're my hero for not doing anything.
Wow.
And that was the first time in my whole entire process that I actually forgave myself for what happened. Because somebody who's laying in the fetal position in the corner of a room, they're in pain and they're suffering. And guess what? I'm not. I'm at a prison helping people. Right?
Wow. That is, how long ago was that?
Probably 5 years ago.
That is like that whole statement of hurt people, hurt people. That was just a beautiful example of just a hurt person in the fetal position hiding in the corner. So if people saw their abuser, and I always talk about, this is interesting because I'm going to use this, everything you have shared at some context, I'm going to use somewhere to help somebody else, which is what this is all about. If people saw their abuser or their person as a hurt person, sometimes instead of looking at them as a victor, a lot of times you were raped or abused or have a problem, you picture the person partying, acting great. That person's in pain themselves.
Yeah, anybody who's inebriated is masking some kind of emotional pain, which is traced back to a traumatic experience.
Wow. And I didn't want to know what happened to that guy, because that makes sense. At some point in his life, I'm certain he went through. You don't wake up one day deciding to be a pedophile. You don't wake up one day deciding to be, I don't even know if that's the appropriate term, wanting to molest people or harm them or beat people. Shit happens to you, and you wind up changing the trajectory of what it is that you do. So
when we look at epigenetics,
yep.
After I started delving into epigenetics, I go, you know what? This is nobody's fault. Nobody's fault, right? Because all this DNA, all this shit that happens to each generation gets passed on to us. And even though we may not have experienced, my great-grandfather's trauma, he's passed the gene somewhere down in my DNA, which causes me to feel a certain way, or my brain doesn't develop properly, or whatever it is. And it's like, you know what? It really isn't anybody's fault here.
So what are you doing with your kids? You have 4 kids, is that correct? Four kids, and then from 2 different moms, right? Three? Okay, 3 different moms. And so one of the kids' son, right, was there through the shit, correct? And then kids that are less through the shit, the new version, the real Theron that your mom always wanted you to be. What are you doing to assist and serve and help without meddling to realize that these genes are in there? Your mom's volume is in each of these kids. Does that make sense? You and I are speaking our level of thinking.
Well, my kids have my mom's depression, her anxiety, all these things, right? So it's an open door.
Okay.
Like each one of my kids have seen me speak.
Oh, I love it.
Okay. And, they come up to me and they go, wow, I had no idea. Because they were only getting one version of the story, right? From mom, who, was probably pissed off and angry with me, right?
She didn't know the whole story. When you get lied to for years, you don't know.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
Which is fun. And every relationship is repairable. Until we stop breathing, every relationship is repairable.
That's a big line. I'm going to make that a big quote. That's the truth.
Even
the one with ourselves.
Yes. Every relationship is repairable.
You might want to write that down for yourself if you don't say that often.
And I always say, I'm one of the lucky ones because I got to play the country music record backwards. Because I got my dog back, my car back, my girl back, my house back. Like I got everything back, right? But if I take one drink, country record starts playing forward again and I start to lose everything, right? Because alcohol and drugs is like a solvent. When I put it in my body, shit starts to disappear. My wife, my kids, my job, my house, everything disappears when I put alcohol and drugs in my body. So I know that I can't drink anymore. Can't.
Yeah, I quit I quit 4 years ago, and biggest reason I quit is how can I help you or help anyone else if well, I got to accept the power of my own influence, I said, and I'm sitting here with my wife out to dinner with a fancy bottle of wine. What kind of message am I sending, knowing that half the world has a problem with it? Question for you, and this is big because you've been sober 14 plus years, you said, and a lot of business owners and stuff are watching this. The world, man, until you stop drinking, you don't realize how much people drink. Airport, hotel, mini bar, bar in the lobby, Vegas shouldn't even go near. What are the words you have for somebody knowing whether they're in the program or not, knowing that this is not serving them, it's not helping them? They're watching this interview going, got it. I'm going to start with the drinking. I'm going to stop with the stuff. What do you recommend knowing that if you're traveling or anything, that shit's just so prevalent? Like, how do you deal with that? What is your mechanism? Because you stay in hotel rooms. You know what I'm talking about.
Well, I don't even think about it anymore.
Okay. But let's say 12 years ago.
But you have to change absolutely every single thing about your life. Everything. People, places, and things you have to change. Because if you don't, you're going to keep drinking. Right?
Got it. And that's the key. Change that. So
you have to change everything. Like, I got another story for you.
Keep them going. If you're good on time, I love stories.
Yeah. When I got sober, everybody said to me, you want to find out who your real friends are? Get sober. Okay. So I got sober. I had 500 phone numbers in this phone.
Yes.
500 phone numbers.
Yep.
So you know what I did? I called all 500 numbers and I said, listen, made a choice, made a decision, not drinking, not doing drugs, not going to bars. So don't ask me to do that. But if you'd like to come to my house, I'll cook you a nice dinner. First time in our relationship, we'll actually have a meaningful conversation. You know how many friends I had left? 2.
Who was that?
2 buddies of mine.
Okay.
But that's all I needed, right? Because they loved me, cared enough about me, wanted to see me do well. And you know what I call the other 498? My 10 o'clock friends.
Yeah.
You know what happens at 10 o'clock, right?
Yep.
When they get all fucking drunk and, close talking and shit, right? The truth comes out, right?
You couldn't say it more accurate than that.
So, but what's happened is the 498 have come back. Why? Because it's the law of attraction, not promotion. Are
they getting sober also?
So I went on my own journey.
Yep.
Got sober, got my shit together, all this stuff. And then people, these 498 would see me out and they would come up and they'd go, wow, do you ever look good? Like, what did you do? Like, what are you doing? I said, I got fucking sober. That's what happened. Which then invites them into the conversation because they're going, yeah, I'm drinking a lot, or I'm doing this, or I'm doing that. Now I can bring them in.
So you led by example, but the leader you always were in sports. You decided to be a leader, followed your big leader buddy, Wayne. Does that make sense? So how I guess this is a under the bus conversation, if it's appropriate to have, how prevalent is the alcohol abuse in athletes that are retired versus them having this intelligent conversation? I don't need names or anything, but how much of an issue is that? Because
this isn't solely one category, right? Yep. This is a societal issue. What do you think the most common used drug by trauma survivors is?
Well, it's probably alcohol.
Alcohol.
Yep.
Alcohol. And it's legal.
Yep.
It's legal and very socially acceptable. Right?
And the more money you have, the more you can hide it, get a better brand, better booze.
Whatever.
Better something.
Yeah. Like we've created this whole culture, like the wine industry. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Yeah. I'm not kidding you. I get it. It's
unbelievable. It is unbelievable.
And it plays to the ego, and the ego guy's the one with the trauma. So you've got a guy with an ego that, and I'm not putting labels on everybody. You got a guy that's producing $1 billion business so he can go be on some list somewhere to get some wine that's $9,000 a bottle, right? Yep. To feed the trauma that he has of an insecurity that he can prove that he has this big, like this dick swinging contest of how much wine I can buy, then drinking it, right?
But do you know, he who has the most toys when he dies still dies.
Truth. Yes. Yes.
Right?
So how do we change this? I mean, I can't change everybody, but let's talk that 498.
You gotta get those people helping other people, right? That's it.
But one of the guys on our team, Chip here, is on video. He said amazing words the other day to me. He said, "We're telling people to help people, and maybe they're insecure and they can't help people. If you can't help people, bring them to the help." And I heard those words. I'm like, that is genius. And that's why I connected with you, because I'm like, if you can't hear it from me, hear it from you. If your book lights them up, either of the books, which I recommend both of them, get lit up. If you need EMDR, you need what I do, you need AA, you need NA, SNL, whatever it is that you need.
Whatever it takes.
Yes.
Whatever it takes, right? That's the bottom line. And then, because it's a daily routine, that's it, right? I live in a 24-hour space.
Give me your 24 hours. I want to hear what it looks like.
Well, I get up, I have a coffee, do a little meditation, light a smudge, do some smudging, that kind of stuff. And then, then I hang out with guys like you and talk about, the problem and the issue. And then I do my own podcast, or I'm on the stage speaking, whatever it is. But my whole 24 hours is, I would say the majority of it is dedicated to helping one person every day get some help.
I love it. Well, how can I help you best? I'd love to help you any way I can. I mean, and as a human being, I admire what you do. You have that anger inside. I heard a guy say years ago, there's never been angrier people than Gandhi and Martin Luther King, that inside their head, they had so much anger. I think it was Alan Watts that said it. If you ever heard of Alan Watts, you got to check him out. You'd love him. And he said, the anger that they had inside of their heads, that it wasn't okay the way the world was, showed up in love in the world. How do I serve you best in your cause? Because if ever I can help anybody or do anything, I just want to open up my heart and my wisdom or anything to help you. If I can do anything, I'm going to recommend your books to our people, whatever you're up to, book you to speak. How can Michael Bernoff help with what you have done?
Well, I just, the more people I can get in front of, I think, I have an impact.
You do.
Wherever I go, and I think I just love to reach that one person in the audience and just grab them and, get the light bulb to go off, to shine, right? Because that's the key to all of this. When the light bulb goes on, you're unstoppable, because all that shame, those inadequacies, I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, it changes something inside of you, because you go, holy shit, not only am I not in the minority, but I'm in the majority here. And that's what my audience takes away every time, is that they go, geez, I never thought that, this particular event that happened to me changed my life and put it on a different path, right? Whether it's addictions or sex addiction or, whatever it was. I was, remember when all that Ashley Madison stuff came out?
Yeah.
I was like, man, I can't believe how many people are traumatized. That was my first thought.
Traumatized by it happening or being involved?
Trauma in general, caused how many subscriptions to Ashley Madison? Yep. That's trauma.
Yes.
That's not infidelity. That's lacking all of these things. I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable, right?
Can't be loved.
Yeah, right? So you get into these secret, affairs that are feeding your dopamine and serotonin and all of your brain chemistry, right? That's the way I thought of it. Whereas the majority of the world, they just shit all over those people.
That's their moral side came out instead of their human side.
Right.
And they were so concerned more biblically
which is the church who told us that sex was bad.
Yeah.
When we're mammals and it's a natural thing to do. They made it a bad thing.
And then everybody's worried they're bad. And then what happens is you wind up with stigmas and problems.
Because it just piles on to how you feel. Right.
Wow.
you know? And so if you look at it from a different lens, but we won't look at it from a different lens, right? Because we would, you know, people would rather look at my story and go, yeah, that guy blew $50 million and, you know, he's a crackhead and all this stuff. No, I was in pain. That was it. I was in pain.
And that's your story. It's that simple. You took all those years and numbed it down to I was in pain and I'm not now. Yeah. Cost me 50 million to save my life.
I'm still in pain, but I have a whole bunch of tools that gets me out of pain pretty quick.
What's the fastest tool you pull out of your box now?
Meditation, man.
How does somebody start that? I know we don't have to get to the yoga class, but
no. So we have this phone. We have this phone.
Yep.
Okay. And every phone has this little app called YouTube.
Got it.
Okay. And there's a little magnifying glass, and you press the magnifying glass for the search engine and punch in meditation. Meditation. Oh, wow. Okay, there's meditation music. There's meditation for sleep.
Probably meditation for dummies if you look.
For anxiety. Let's see. Meditation for beginners. Meditation for positive energy. Meditation for kids. You know, and it takes, 10, 15 minutes to throw on a set of headphones and go through a guided meditation to change your brain chemistry. Pretty simple.
I love it. Just get started.
Yeah, just get started, right?
Wow, this has been a trip in all levels, and I connected with your playing with fire like immediately because I after you wrote it, I already could tell that you did the work. You have to know the work to see the work throughout the way you wrote it, and I could tell the way you told it was a healing in itself, whether you realized it or not. Do you believe that putting that book out there, and I'd love you to just to let everyone know afterwards how they can get access to that. I mean, obviously they can get it on Amazon or something, but if there's a place
Amazon, or you can just go to theofleury.life and go to our
we'll put
store,
that down below,
and I'll send you an autographed copy.
Okay, perfect. I love that. I feel that there's a healing there as well because I've read a lot of books. I read Bob Probert's book. I read Nyland's stuff, and I'm very into people in the public eye, and he's another guy. He's big in the program. Hopefully he's still doing good. I don't know if you've reached out to Chris at all, but
oh yeah, we've done some events together.
Okay, I love what he's up to. I sent a text to him a couple of months ago. One of my buddies does a high-profile AA with him in Boston and or in Montreal, one of the two. And what's interesting about this is that I get moved all the time hearing the stories, and sometimes hearing somebody what they went through and the trauma of like Bob's story or anything that gone wrong. Does that make sense? And the story didn't end well. Do you feel that if somebody reads your story, it's okay then they can tell their story?
Absolutely.
Would that be a good step in the right direction for somebody that's hiding and dealing with someone, just to start by listening to your story?
Yeah, that's why I wrote the book, right? Because, you know, there's not too many professional athletes who write books where they're talking about the stuff that I was talking about, right?
I don't think I read it ever.
You know, and that's that vulnerability piece that I'm talking about. That's what makes a great book, is a book that makes you, or a story that makes you feel absolutely every single feeling that you have.
I couldn't put that thing down.
Yeah.
And it was amazing.
And what I always tell people is, you know, like, it's okay to tell your story because it's your story. And you get to tell your story whichever way you want. And the people that judge you are the ones that they themselves have stuff in their closet.
So you're telling me when you come to somebody and they want to heal, but they don't want to heal, and they give you a hard time, or they give you shit, or they tease you, they just got to look in the mirror themselves.
Yeah, that's what I say to them. I go, you can judge me all you want, but just so we know that your side of the street is clean, can I have a peek into your closet? Because if I get a peek into your closet, I'm going to find the exact same thing that I had the courage and the strength to talk about. Right? So I'm not hiding anymore, but you still are, because you've been triggered and you're judging and you're pointing the finger at me. So that tells me you just outed yourself that you're a trauma survivor as well.
Wow. This has been incredible. I've really enjoyed. I could talk to you 5 more hours. I respect your time. I think I asked you for 45 minutes. We're going on 90, and I could talk to you for 3 more days on this. Is there any last words or anything that you would love to share with who's watching this as humans, and humans that have accepted that they're not where they want to be in their life, that they've accepted that there's a bigger way of playing? Is there any advice you'd give from the highest mountaintops you've been on to the lowest depths of hell that you've been to that you'd love to give humans and their families and people that really have a chance to make a difference? Because our audience are people that truly are committed to the quality of their life and are ready for change. These are your advocates. Any words you have for your team here?
Well, vulnerability is the ultimate in courage. Okay. And then that courage is contagious, right? Because your courage is going to allow somebody else to find their own courage, right? So I love the old Vidal Sassoon commercial, greatest marketer in the history of our planet. Because he said, 2 friends told 2 friends, and they told 2 friends, and so on and so on and so on and so on. And this is how this works.
Wow.
If you're in the audience and you hear that one guy say something that triggers something inside of you to make change, then whatever you get, you have to give it away, right? So whatever you get, you got to give it away. So, because why would you go through all that pain and suffering if you're not going to give it away? Because that's the secret sauce here is, how do I go on to have a healthy, happy, joyful, peaceful, productive life?
I think that's all everybody's after.
That's the best revenge in all of this, right? But if I became my abuser, nobody wins, right? So I got to rise above that, realize this is part of my plan. My experiences are part of my plan, and pain is the greatest motivator that we have. Because when we're in pain, it says, oh, something's wrong in the world. Something needs to change. That's why I'm in pain. And I need to get to the core and the root of that pain in order to rise above and heal. Right?
Wow.
Because
so you basically became your own abuser. You were being abused and you became your own abuser.
Yeah, absolutely. After my abuser left my life, I took over the abuse because I didn't feel good enough and I didn't feel lovable and all this stuff, right? I had all this guilt and shame and all this shit I was carrying around.
So
and
the last thing I'll say,
I got
to ask one more. After your last thing, you just hit me with another thing. You're going to get one more last thing.
So when I work with addicts and alcoholics,
Yep.
The first question I ask them is I say, where are you at in your spirituality? Because that's the key to all of this. That
Good
there's
question.
something greater than myself that's running the show here. It's not me. I'm not running the show. There's something greater. So, about 5 years into my sobriety, I hit a wall and I was like, if this is what sobriety is, I don't want any part of it. I might as well go back and drink. And that's when I realized that step 1, 2, 3 in the program of 12-step was all about spirituality. And so I went on a spiritual journey, and I've been on a spiritual journey for a long time, right? And where I felt the most comfortable is in the Aboriginal community. So I practice.
Is that your heritage? That's your heritage too, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I go to sweat lodges and powwows and participate in drumming circles and all this. I smudge, all these things. And when I do it, man, do I feel connected to something greater than myself. So spiritual practice every day, whether that's doing yoga or, meditating like the Buddhists do or whatever it is, right? And I've taken a little bit of each religion and each spirituality, and I made it my own, right? Because I get to pick my own God. Nobody's going to pick the God of my own understanding. I get to pick it.
I feel like I'm talking to myself. This is so well said.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to hold you together. That's what's going to keep you on the straight and narrow, is that spiritual connection. Because when I'm connected spiritually, I'm never alone. I am never alone. And I could never be by myself. Never.
So I understand the fear and the doubt and the old you. What is the emotion? This is like you said, you got 5 years into the 12 steps and you're like, this is it? This is boring. Do you know what I'm saying? I want the 498 back. I only got the 2 friends. What is the emotion that Theron feels on a daily, weekly, monthly basis? I know the old emotion. We don't need to go there. What is the feeling you get? Like if you had to give it one word or a feeling that is the predominant, dominant emotion inside of your body, like that North Star on a regular basis that your family sees you have, your kid.
It's funny. You might not think this, but when I tap into my sadness is when I have the most joy.
I get it. You ever cry in your car listening to music?
I cry all the time.
Yeah.
Right. And I know every time I cry, I'm healing my anger. Because that's what anger is. Anger is sadness turned inward. Right. And my biggest fear was I was always afraid that once I started crying, I would never stop.
Really?
Yeah, that was my biggest fear, because I didn't want to be that sad, right? I didn't want to, express that emotion, because we were always told to suck it up, stop crying.
Yeah, you had that dad. I saw the videos. You had that dad. He did not cry, that guy.
I'll give you something to cry about.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why I'm so connected to these guys in prison, because they're all angry. But really, they're really sad guys. And nobody's ever, helped them get to the sadness part of their life. Nobody's ever explained to them what, true sadness is.
Wow. And part of that is not knowing who you are. So who are you today? If you were to sum it up, who are you today in your life? Like, who is Theo Fleury, 2020, January 27th? Who are you today?
Well, I'm a work in progress. People always, I always say I'm not that evolved yet. And, I think that takes all expectations out of the equation, because I don't have expectations. All I want to do is I want to be better today than I was yesterday. And that's not leaps and bounds. That's just baby steps. Because if I don't experience the pain and the suffering and then move out of it, then I'm not going to get better. Right. And so it is a daily grind, but I do experience moments of joy and happiness and all that. And to me, that's a win, because I never felt that way.
And this is your favorite, this is your skating on the pond, this conversation now, right? Whether it's this or on stage.
Yeah, whatever it takes, right? That's what this is all about. Whatever it takes for me to get better every day, I'm willing to do it, right? And that's basically the only thing I pray for, is willingness. That's it.
I love it. I love it. Well, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your desire to share and your willingness to help out. If people are watching this right now, again, we'll put up your website one more time. Pick up that book. Do you recommend everyone starts with Playing with Fire before they read the second book?
Yeah.
That's what I did. And then if somebody wants to get a hold of you to book you to speak at an event, you're willing to travel anywhere?
Anywhere. Yeah.
Okay.
And you can go to theofleury.life is my website, and my business manager Dawn will get back to you immediately. And
she's quick.
We'll go anywhere. We love, I love people. I love their stories. I love their struggles. It's all part of life. And by me listening to other people's stories, I learn. Right? I learn. If you want to heal, go help somebody else heal.
Yes. And that's key. And that's what we've got to do. We got to get as many people in front of this possible. I'm so happy you're out there. I'm so happy you're doing this. I'm so happy you're covering the world and Canada as a whole. And I know the challenge up there is a group of human beings that don't really want to talk about this at all because of the culture. But all right. Well, any other final thoughts? If not, I'll wrap it up.
No, man. It was an awesome conversation. I love these kind of conversations because, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, right?
Yeah.
That's what it's all about is relationship. That's why I call myself an expert in relational trauma, is because I was injured in relationship. And how am I going to repair it? In relationship. That's how we rewire the brain. That's how we rewire the brain is in relationship. Right?
I love it.
We can't do it by ourselves.
No.
You cannot do this by yourself. I tried, failed miserably.
So you did have final words. You did have final words for everybody. Stop trying to do it themselves, right?
Yep. It's okay to ask for help. Doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're a person of tremendous courage and strength. And you're a warrior. A warrior.
I like that you said that you're not a victim, you're a victor, or you've already been through it. Who was the first person off the subject here? Who was the first person that you went to and actually had the courage to ask for help? Who was that?
I think it was God.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did God say back to you?
Well, the next morning I woke up and I didn't desire a drink or any drugs.
Cold turkey?
And it's been 14 years.
So you just quit cold turkey?
Well, I don't know. Something happened because it was gone the next morning.
Wow.
Like I had it out with God in a washroom like 14 years ago. And I was like, can't do this anymore. So I'm done. And you take over, but don't put any more shit on my plate. I said to God, I go, don't put any more shit on my plate. I go, I'll take care of this.
Yes.
You take care of that. And then at the end of the conversation, I said, God, please take away the obsession to drink and do drugs. And sure enough, the next morning I woke up and it was gone.
I got this big push I have in the world, and I'm so happy you exist and that our paths crossed, is that I believe that if we can impact before I die 1% of the people on this earth, that's it. It's a small number to have happier lives, to feel less trauma, to have the courage to listen, to accept a phone with 2 friends versus 498. I did my purpose and I will die in peace. And that's all I teach my kids. Just so with every event that we speak at, every podcast, if this literally gets 1 out of 100 people to have a tougher conversation they normally do, this was the best hour of my life I ever spent. Typically after I get excited about something, my typical response is, what's next? And I wanted to make it real easy for you to have access to some training and other materials that will help you get what it is that you want in your life. So on this page is access to a free 1-hour training, absolutely free, to pick up where we left off here, but most importantly, give you tools, strategies, and ideas on how to get more in your life to get more of what you want. So you know what to do, take action, click the button. I'm excited to share more with you soon.